That's what you want, like the headline to read, like, like, oh yeah, Walk Off the Earth breaks up because so and so didn't put away their socks.
Yeah.
I'd be like, that's such a Canadian story, because it'd be
They
like,
made it
hold
through.
on,
They made it through all this actual insanity, and then
yeah,
that's what did it. The
it's like
sock that broke the
yeah,
camel's back.
Welcome to another episode of Tobin Tonight. We're here with JC. He said I could call him Joel, but he has JC on the computer, so let's just call him JC.
Yes, sir.
From Walk Off the Earth. I'm so glad that you took the time to come on this podcast.
My
I
pleasure,
was
man.
going to start off with a Harry Carey impression because I have the hair and the glasses. Like, oh, welcome to the show. But it's great to have you.
That was good.
Yeah, I'm gonna take these off because it's kind of bothering me. But
Okay.
I want to ask you first, like, tell me a little bit about how this band formed. We're gonna get like all over the place.
Totally.
These are what these conversations do. But
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about it, because like doing a little bit of reading, I think it's like 2011 it started. But
so
maybe,
yeah, sure, man. My entry point was 2011. The band had been going for a few years at the local level, with a prior personnel, essentially, right? With our guy G, who is still, like, he's really the founder of the band and continues to be the leader of the band. At that time, his buddy Ryan Marshall, and at that time the original drummer from G's older band, Pete Kirkwood. So they were a trio for years, did their thing, in the GTA, doing the bar circuit, doing the thing. Their kind of biggest break at the time had been a couple dates on Warped Tour, which, if anybody knows what that is, it was a big look for many years, until I think they just recently in the last few years hung it up. So that was the early days. While that was going on, I was on a straight line to music school, actually. My whole life in music, starting with piano, getting into my angsty teenage years and wanting to be a rock star, and getting into guitar, and then just kind of landing on drums almost by happenstance. I was pursuing this kind of educational path at that point because I didn't want to do anything else. And I was lucky enough to have parents that were down to support me wanting to go into this thing that almost certainly wouldn't go anywhere and get me a job just by the numbers, right? Like, I feel like it's so many kids, like all my buddies wanted to be in Blink-182 or Green Day. And that was like, those were our gods, and like, it's how great. I'm more grateful as time goes on that I had parents who supported that, because there I was pursuing this education path and saying, wait, you can go to school for music? Like, let me at least try that. So giving that a shot, realizing not until I got there that music to me was always a journey best discovered, a path best traveled with my buddies, and not necessarily. Art school is a weird thing, man. Like, it's getting in a room and saying, hey, we're, be creative under these measures, and we're going to give you a mark for that, right? Like, people love to say art is so subjective, right? So it's the idea of someone saying good job or bad job is such a funny thing, right? And really, when I look back and I think about it, music school helped me. In the real value of music school to me was it showed me what I didn't want. Because sure, I saw the path that was, yep, we could do this. I could maybe wind up teaching, or who knows, try to freelance around the city, which I did a good amount of right here in Toronto, a bit of that, and knew that wasn't the vibe for me. So one thing led to another. I got a chance to actually go on a very small tour in Europe with a local singer-songwriter. This would have been 2010 maybe. And that completely, every issue that I had about music school was answered when I got a chance to just go out there and see Europe for the first time and really enjoy it. So that was a moment. And then coming back to school after that, I was like, this is not the vibe. I'm going to bounce. Went back home to Burlington, Ontario. I had always known about WOTE from coming up in smaller bands and getting a chance to share stages with them and stuff. But I'd never actually gotten in touch with the guys until a mutual friend, a buddy that I went to high school with, a trombone player, Tyler Norton, had done a few Warped Tour shows with them. And at that time, Pete Kirkwood was just about to leave the band, the original drummer. So enter me, and getting a chance to chat with G. And at that time, like, WOTE had just started doing YouTube, and like, I think there was like 3,000 subscribers total. Right. And essentially getting in, chatting with G, saying, hey, we're doing this thing. Like, we're starting to kind of do this YouTube thing, because like, we've known up until now is we're going to pile into a van and just try and like hit the open road and try to get people interested in our music. But here we are. This is right after like our buddy Justin Bieber from down the road had shown what YouTube could do. Right. So like, something was clearly starting to happen there. And there was like 5 videos on the channel, like just a couple of G goofing around and a couple of the original 3 there. And just dove in and just kind of went hard for a year, just doing the local circuit and trying to make fun videos and cool content. And man, one thing led to another. And like literally about a year in, just a bit over, we found ourselves in Johnny's kitchen doing that 5 people, 1 guitar video. And man, we just recently, a few months back, celebrated 10 years since that video went out. And it has been such a blur, but such a privilege, such an honor. And truly grateful to still be doing it despite a whole bunch of ups and downs along the way.
The other thing I want to ask you too, kind of mention, is when you were talking about like obviously going on these different tours and then finally joining this band, like what was the process like? Because I know when you ask certain band members when they first start a band, it's like, oh, like, let's get our buddies together, let's see how we gel. But like when you're already kind of, I guess, into a band that's kind of created and it's like you're just kind of filling in pieces, like was it tough for you to be like, because again, as your role in the band, was it tough to be like, hey, I actually think we should do it this way? Or were you kind of like, whoa, they're already doing well, like I'm just here? Like how was your perception of that?
It's a great question, man. I entered at a really good time in the sense that Johnny and Marshall were working on, funny enough, a forthcoming LP that never saw the light of day because things went crazy and we ended up going a totally different direction. But the guys were far enough along, getting new demos together where they were screaming for drum parts. So pretty much right away, that was really kind of my, if there ever was any form of audition process, it was like, hey, here's a demo we just cut. Here's a bed track. Let's see what you got. Let's throw you in. We have a long-standing connection to a studio in Burlington called B-Town Sound, and our buddy Justin Coop, G, for the longest time owned a room in the back actually, and that's where a lot of the first WOTE records were made. That's where the first kind of big major label release was done. We've moved on since, but just so many memories there, and we still find ourselves back there doing various things. But yeah, what an opportunity to like hit the ground running and be like, oh, okay. And I feel like that's almost what an ideal situation, because like the other side of it is like, hey, learn all these songs and some I had done things back in the day where a band would want me to learn things beat for beat, where how it was done on the record, or do things absolutely not how they were done on the record, like somewhere in between. Here was a chance to really I'm a serial overthinker, just to not let that side get to me and just be like, oh, I have no choice but to just deliver right now. And obviously it worked out. What's funny is that the guys loved that, and we really started to kind of build a vibe that way. This is when also Mike Taylor, rest in peace, had just joined the band. So there was this new vibe, and there was like, you could tell that the guys, much as G is very much he really is the visionary at the end of the day. We all, especially over the years, we've all kind of like found our ways to contribute and to bring ideas to the table, but it's G's baby at the end of the day. And even with that in mind, at that time, you could tell that there was a real shift happening, and like G has always been like, this is going to be the biggest band in the world and we'll do whatever it takes to get it there, which is like so much respect for the guy. But there was this moment where it's like, okay, possible new drummer. We just added a keys player. There's room for this to really kind of go in a potential new direction without compromising what started Walk Off the Earth in the first place, right? So I guess that's a roundabout way of saying I definitely kind of,
you have your input. Yeah,
I eased my way in, but I did find those moments, and what a great moment that was to start to get more and more, and certainly over these years, get more of a creative input. And you hear about the bands that don't have it, that don't make it in the long term, and they have the creative differences or this sort of stuff. Like, fortunately, pretty much off the hop, there was an opportunity for me to have my voice heard, even in certainly just getting started. I was the kid who just dropped out of music school, right? These guys have been going for a while. I'll always be kind of the baby of this band, which is funny because I'm 33 now, but just being grateful for the fact that like there was such a creative void in my system coming off music school, wishing that it was going to be the answer that I was looking for, knowing definitely that it was not going to be, and wanting to kind of seek that creative fulfillment elsewhere, and find it pretty much on a first try with WOTE is something that I will forever be grateful for. And things really only kind of got crazier from there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when you were mentioning, of course, about the social media side, and like I guess in this term, YouTube, like I remember maybe it was either I want to say high school, because we've moved on like from a different house since then, but like
Yeah.
I remember Bo Burnham being like just kind of blasting out of YouTube because it was like, welcome to YouTube. It's like, you don't know what you're missing. Just try searching women. And I recite that because I remember looking at this YouTube live and I was like I grew up on Much Music. So the YouTube live day was kind of like a branch of like, okay, this is interesting. And
Yeah.
then like now you look back and be like, holy crap, like that was like so many years ago. But like look at the people that kind of came out of that. And when you were mentioning about Justin Bieber and like starting in YouTube, like I want to ask you, it's kind of like a bit of a two-sided thing, but it's like obviously YouTube kind of garnered you a fan base,
Yeah.
like obviously, but like now we have the social media where I feel like you've got Instagram, TikTok, and like that's got to be helpful to people like this band because they're very innovative. Like I know, like I can't say I sat down and watched the episode, but it's like you were on Ellen doing the whole thing
Yeah.
of like the
Yeah.
five with the guitar or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
like right, all these instruments. And I was like, okay, I don't remember watching it, but when I was doing the research, I'm like, that got to be like really cool. Like you're on Ellen, and this is what
Oh,
you're on Ellen for. But like now you go on TikTok and Instagram, you see like some videos, you're like, what? Like, how did I end up here? Like, this
yeah.
does not
Yeah.
appeal to me. But like,
Yeah.
I remember just scrolling through now that I'm in podcasting, and I think it was like, you got to be like very energetic. So I think it was like Sarah was the one that was on the TikTok or whatever, and she's like, hey, like check out this new song we're doing, like bet on
Yep.
me. And I was like, why does this band sound familiar? And then I remembered like it was in university, I had heard
Nice.
covers you guys did, and I was like them. And like I'm not making fun of you for you guys, because like a lot of musicians happen this in my phone, but it's like you get a song, it's popular for that time, and then it's like, okay, you listen to it, and then suddenly it kind of drifts away. You're like,
Of
oh,
course.
what happened to that band? It's like they continued, you just didn't continue to keep up with them.
Exactly.
Right. But then when I seen Sarah's post of like, hey, check out this song, and then like silence the piano, I was like, you motherfucker, you can't silence a piano. That's the whole point. And then it's like when she started playing it, I was like, all right, have they shown other preview clips? So I scroll down, and then you see them go like, hey, check it out. We're all playing. And I'm like, how can you do this? But
Yeah.
then I waited, and I was like to the point where I probably sent a message to that account. Now I don't know who managed the account, where it's like, hey, we want to hear from you. I was like, I've never done this for another band. So then I was like, oh, let's take out our rap school genre. So then I
Yep.
put in like my own quote. Tyler Shaw did a great job
Yeah,
of
man.
his. And then I was like, oh, I'm very interested in who wins, because now I've heard so many, but like that's the whole power of social media and YouTube.
Yeah.
So I
Open
feel
verse
like,
challenge.
yeah, like how do you, I mean, I know it's a long worded way of putting it, but like now with the social media that you have with Instagram, TikTok, all these,
Yeah.
like, do you find like the fan base has kind of grown because of all this? Because they can keep up with you anywhere. Like if Sarah goes out on the street and she just takes her phone, like, hey, I'm out on the street today. There's like 5 people like, love you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, exactly. Right. Like it's just literally just doing whatever it takes to fight for that relevancy and that bit of extra attention span, right? We're in the era of the ever diminishing attention span here. So like you realize that the new and hot social, and I feel like this is just going to keep happening. Like we for a while we were like, we knew that TikTok was out and doing its thing, but like for a while I feel like we were so focused on like, into our stretch that we had gotten used to of like our assembly line of like a YouTube, share things over to Instagram, maybe a little bit of Twitter, but like finally saying, okay, this is obviously a major thing. And it's, and sure, maybe some of these will go the way of Vine or go the way of, there are other smaller apps that have come and go
Oh,
along the years,
Vine, yeah.
but like, it's so important to, you can't, in the same way that you can't pick your fans as an artist, you can't pick how the people consume most of their content. And when you start to look at the metrics side of a TikTok, of obviously Instagram Reels, and you see a YouTube trying to keep up with their shorts, Twitter tried it and killed it with fleets. You just got to play ball, or else, if you're not doing it, someone else is going to come along and do it. And that's really one of the big takeaways that certainly for a decade of getting a chance to go out and see the world and continue to do it and tour and live that, that 12-year-old rock star dream that I had, wanting to be Travis Barker when I was a kid.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I've learned that continues to keep all of us, I think, really humbled is like, there is so much talent out there, man. And if we aren't grinding every day and continuing to find cool things to share and neat things even if we see another TikTok and we're like, oh, that guy, funny enough, G had seen 4 guys playing on one guitar, which ended up being us. We're going to one up that. We still do that a lot with certain TikTok things. That's a really cool idea. Let's make it way crazier. That's something that we continue to do, because we know that if we're not doing it, someone else is going to be doing that, and they're going to be getting that attention span and cornering the market that way. And there's no shortage of talent out there. And as time goes on, there are increasingly easier ways for people to get their talent, to share their talents with the world. And there's no option but to try to keep up with that, keep that momentum going, because there's no other way, really. And we know that's what's got us here, and that's what's kept us here. And enter the pandemic, and because we've been such an internet focused band over the years, there we were getting called by every brand out there to do either like a some sort of brand deal with them, or like we've always done pretty well with like corporate gigs, right? And like we have this pretty, we've come to be known for this pretty entertaining live show. So we'll get
Yeah.
what used to be, hey, we're going to fly out to DC for 2 days and perform at a thing and fly back. In the pandemic turned into, hey, we're just going to go to B-Town Sound, bring in a camera crew, and either do a live stream or a pre-tape and send it off. We did very well with those through the pandemic, to the point where it helped remind us that, of course, going on the road, and there's so many things that are kind of an important trapping of being a big band that does big things or whatever, right? But for us to realize, well, we might have actually gotten a little more carried away in the rock staritis of going on the road, when realistically what got us here and what's going to keep us here is internet, right? And I think
Yeah.
any band pre-pandemic that wasn't prioritizing regular internet content had a rude awakening, as far as like, we need to start this now. And for us, that was, okay, fine, we need to finally get into TikTok, because this thing is obviously going nowhere but up, and certainly in the short term, probably beyond that. So getting into that and just really thinking shorter and more bite-sized with content and what's going to hook people, and really maybe not to like a Mr. Beast level. I don't know if you saw Mr. Beast on Rogan. He was talking about like spending years analyzing every second and the length of camera angles and stuff. We didn't go that deep, but essentially what used to be, and we still do them, and we'll continue to do them. What used to be a 4 or 5 minute video of us, maybe like we have a Hey Ya cover that's like absolutely insane. There's stuff happening, like being thrown all over the place the whole time. Let's take the ethos of that. Let's take a few of those moments and try to cook them into a quick thing that someone's going to want to share or watch a million times in a row and get really excited. And just to answer your question, of course, we're starting to see a whole variety. We've always had a kind of a crazy demographic reach, but certainly now with the TikTok, like the numbers don't lie. They say that, you know, a lot of younger folks and not even millennials anymore, I guess Gen Z and whatnot, right, are on there. So definitely tapping into a little more of that demographic has been very much a thing. And we see it when we're about to, for the first time in almost definitely well over 2 years, hit the road as of June 1st. And I'm sure we're going to see that kind of more youth leaning crowd, where what used to be, honestly, man, like us, like we would have everyone from grandparents to toddlers to parents to teens, you know, the whole thing, that kind of like 20-year-old demographic that has never really been the kind of too cool for school crowd. That's never really been a thing. They see us doing the TikTok thing and the open verse challenge and working with rappers and whatever, and they're like, oh, these guys might actually be worth my time. So, you know,
I think it's kind of funny, because when you mentioned that about like being the too cool crowd, I'm trying to remember if it was like, now I could be wrong, but it was either Carleton University or Algonquin at one time when they had like the whole, you know, like when I'm from Newfoundland originally, so like we've never had, and I don't want to put it out there as like a bad thing, but I don't remember ever going to Memorial University and like you're just welcome into a university and they have like, you know, just before the summer ends, you have like a concert or whatever. I don't remember that at Mont. I don't. Now, it's not saying that they haven't had it. It's just probably I born and raised here. You kind of get that hometown syndrome where it's like, I know everything about this place.
Yeah.
Like I'm too cool for this place. And then when I went to Ottawa, and I think it was either Carleton or Algonquin, that maybe you guys had done a show there for like an opening. And I remember reading it and I was just like, I'm too cool to go to these things. Like, I don't care if Classified is there. It's like, Classified is in my neck of the woods. I'm not going. And then now it's like when I go there and you see like Carlton be like, well, it's like Lights will be here. And like, I'm like, oh, I kind of want to go see Lights. It's like, I don't have to pay big money to go see Lights. That's great. But then it's like, at the same point, I'm like, I'm 30 going to a university to watch Lights. I'm like, I feel like I'm an outcast here. But then it's like, at the same point, I'm like, screw you guys. I knew Lights before she was even Lights. And it's like, because when you mentioned about post-pandemic, how the rude awakening, if you didn't keep up with social media, like there's a part of me that dissects that of saying, if you're a Garth Brooks, a Luke Combs, a Thomas Rhett, you're looking at that and going, awesome, pandemic, I will sit back and relax because you're gonna wait for me to come back. You're gonna be dying. It's like when Ed Sheeran every couple of years goes, peace. I'm like, no, not peace. You just released a great album. Where are you going? But I'm like, I'll wait. But then there's our acts out there that are like just getting there. Pandemic hits. It's like, okay, where do we go? Like, I love Lights, but then for the longest time, it's like, where did she go? Now she's back. But I remember just turning on like Instagram one day and she was doing an Instagram live. And I was like, all right, cool. What do we got here, Lights? And she literally spent an hour chatting with fans, which you don't see at concerts. You're not getting that.
Of course.
And like people were like, she's like, I'm here for an hour. you tell me what you want to do.
Yeah.
If no one comments, I'm just going to sing some songs. I think she did
Amazing.
Smash Mouth's All Star, and
Oh,
I was
man.
just like, I was blown away at how well she did because she added her own unique sound.
Killer.
And then I stayed. I didn't even know I stayed for like I was ready to play NHL 22. I only
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
I only dropped in for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
She's on here, dude, and I'm
But
like,
she hooked you.
yeah, I'm like, all right, lights. What else you got? Then she does like
Nice.
Lords, Royals, and all that, and I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
But like
yeah.
that's how I felt with you guys with YouTube. Is you look up a song that's like trending, like "Rude" by Magic, and you're like, all right. I was like, oh, who are these guys? Why are they doing a cover? And then you're like, you know what? I like that cover.
Yeah.
Another cover, and then it's like 5 hours later. You're like, I just spent 5 hours. How?
Yeah.
All right, subscribe. Like honestly, I wanted to show you this like on my phone, but I got to be careful here. But this is like, so when people say like Canadian content, like I think you can
There
see
you
it.
go.
Look, I actually went out and bought it.
Hey, killer,
Like,
man.
yeah,
Appreciate
and then
that,
you
dude.
Scooby Doo, you
Love
see
it.
some Neon
Neon
Dreams, some
Dreams.
Valley. So it's like, if it's a good song, but I
Respect.
feel like Instagram and Twitter or not, well, Instagram and TikTok in a way have kind of helped that because
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like if you had, like I said, YouTube helped me find you, but then it's like after a while you're kind of like, all right, I'm dipping out. But then Instagram brought it up where I'm like, all right, cool. And then it's like, hey, you see stuff on Instagram where people take someone's sound clip and they use it over and over again.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, like the song Sunroof. Like I don't think Sunroof is getting over without TikTok and Instagram using it
Totally.
constantly. So
Totally.
when I see people's video and like you share it, so obviously your fan base appreciates that. But when I see whoever runs the account, and even if you or
It's us,
Sarah,
man.
or
It's
yeah,
always
like
been it's always
like
been us.
like whoever shares it of someone using the song "Bet on Me" in a video, I'm like, all right, so they're not only here just basically saying check out our song, they're basically like, you as the fans are using our song, we're gonna share your video
Yeah.
so that all our fans can see that hey, this is our song, you like it. Like I actually really like the rapping part as well. And
Yeah.
that kind of got me to check out him as well, which is
Oh, D
exposure
Smoke
for
is yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
the
Awesome.
exposure for him. But like there are certain lines in that where I'm just like, damn. It's like Mike,
He's
like it's like 23, like when Mikey was on Nike. I'm like,
yeah.
who comes up with that? He's like,
Yeah.
like I'm just sitting in my room, like I mess that up constantly because I'll say when Nike was on Mikey, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
that's wrong, that's wrong. But I'm like, it's clever lyrics, and then I find now a lot of musicians today are like they refer back to a different, like like 80s or 90s stuff, whether it's the style they play or referencing it in songs. Like I remember the first time I listened to like a Jay-Z song, and he's like, I think he said, which mic, or it's like, which mic do you want? It's like you can have Jackson, I think it's like Jordan, Game 6, and I was like, I know these references. I feel like this is my genre.
Nice.
But now when like you're listening to this song and you're like, I know who that mic is. I know who they're referencing. But there's probably like a generation out there like sings it, and you're like, do you know who that mic is?
Yeah.
No, they're probably just talking about a buddy named Mike. I'm like,
yeah,
no, go
yeah.
away.
They're singing the tune. They love the tune, but they actually don't know what they're
Yeah,
you
like
know,
when we
what
were
they're
kids, you sing Genie in a Bottle, and you're like, I don't understand. And then like later, you're like, oh my God, you let me away with singing that song. What was wrong with you?
I know. Mambo number 5. Like, whoa,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
we're living in an era now of cross promotion and collaboration, and it's almost a necessity. And it's funny that you mentioned that 1% class, the Ed Sheerans of the world, that may not necessarily have to. They still do. I'll never forget G showing me a little interview clip where Sheeran was like, I had a full-on meeting with my team where it's like, what's our TikTok strategy? And you see the Charlie Puths of the world, right, living on TikTok, and he almost started this kind of open verse trend, right, with his tune Light Switch. He had a song that was a trending sound worldwide before the song even dropped. So what a brilliant marketing scheme to not to just use your existing organic following, and maybe you're growing it the whole time along, to get people excited. By the time the thing hits the radio, it's an instant number 1 because you've got millions of people that are already using it, that are already singing it, remixing it, the whole thing, right? It's just so true to that ever diminishing attention span and that need to want to, just that kind of low barrier of entry. Like when we first got into Twitter and first got into Facebook and stuff, everyone was talking about how, oh, you're just one, your fans can send you a DM, your fans can whatever. Now your fan can literally duet your video, and you're probably going to see it, especially when you're saying, hey, do an open verse for us. We got so many great submissions as part of that. We just also happened to get one from a Grammy winner, who is this guy that we didn't even know that D Smoke had won the Netflix show Rhythm and Flow, the one with Cardi B and Chance the Rapper and stuff. He won that, which you should check out. He's brilliant on that. he just happened to come across it because the algorithm, the thing that we're all us creatives are a slave to, happened to treat us right that day and serve that open verse challenge to our guy D Smoke. And he came up with the most fire verse. And that's how songs are made in 2022, man. It's so crazy.
It's funny because it's like now, even with the world that you live in, it's like, even if you wanted to go back, like I know you have different versions of it coming out now, but it's like, even if you did want to go back and say to a fan base, hey, like I know you like D Smoke's song, but but like here there was an audience that liked Tyler Shaw's version, so here's a Tyler Shaw version as well. Like it's like you can release it, and then there'll be still like there's still an audience for it. Like I kind of think it's like the way social media is today.
Can I just quickly tell you something? Because that's the second time you mentioned Tyler.
Yeah.
I don't know when this is coming out, but it's fine. This will be the first time it goes out there. We just finished cutting the Tyler version last night. So
nice.
We are. It's so funny because you're like, what? We just did that. So you saying like, yeah, there's other good versions. Yeah, the Tyler smoked it, and we just got final vocals from him last night. Our guy Tokyo, our engineer, was just cutting them in today, and it's sounding great. So we're gonna do kind of like almost like a special Canadian release with Tyler on it because he killed it so hard. Yeah, and there's a certain, you get into like the radio tracking side of things and radio marketing side of things. There are certain radio formats. It's complicated where, especially tough for an eclectic group like us. There are certain radio formats that just don't veer toward hip hop. Their algorithm doesn't love hip hop. So for us to be thinking about these multiple versions and be like, wait a minute, Tyler had that great open verse, let's bring him in. So that's happening as well.
When he did yours and I seen the duet, I was just like, I was kind of deflated that he wasn't chosen. But then when I heard D Smoke, so I was like, that's fair. That's an old different fan base. But I'm like, I feel like they're close enough friends with Tyler where Tyler's not going to be like, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm not helping you out anymore.
No. And hey, man,
you're like, hey, thanks, man.
You're going to get your Tyler version too. So it all worked out in the end. But yeah, you know what? We're all, much as I feel like it's such a small, especially in Canada, it's such a small community, like the music community. We're all looking out for one another. At the same time, we're all low key competing against one another for that small amount of attention time. Because there's just so much out there these days, and there will never be less. There will never be less of it. So for you to say, and everyone's guilty of that, and it's not even a guilty thing, like to dive head first into a certain band, and then just completely life takes you in a different direction, and you change, you grow, and then there's a certain gap of time where it becomes the nostalgia factor. I'll never forget, we went out to Philadelphia one year and we played with Panic at the Disco and Alt J. Alt J was just blowing up at that time. Panic obviously had been around for decades, and I remember looking out into the audience, the Panic at the Disco audience, and seeing those 14-year-old girls that obsessed when Panic was first blowing up 10 years later, because then nostalgia kicks in, and then it's like, oh, this soundtracked my youth. Now I'm here for the nostalgia factor. And what's crazy is that in these 10 years that WOTE has operated at this level, we've heard people say, hey, I got into you when I was really young, and now, maybe I just graduated or whatever. I just had my first kid, and like now we're introducing, to the next generation, like that side of things, and this sort of stuff, to really, those moments where we're like, oh yeah, this stuff, we're so like nose to the grindstone that we literally tend to forget that our stuff is being discovered by new groups of people around the world every day. So we those moments pull us out, and it's like, oh yeah, this stuff we're doing is like reaching a lot of people, and like for some of them it's making a pretty considerable impact. But of course, it's never going to be, I think there's probably a very small amount of examples where it's like, I've always loved the Eagles, and I've only listened to the Eagles, and I'm only ever going to listen to the Eagles. There's definitely some people that are like that, but I feel like if you're a real music lover and you're wanting to, and you have a pretty eclectic palette, you're always kind of trying to see what's next. And to the point we're talking about, how easy is it to just open up TikTok and just start to scroll away, especially if your algorithm knows that you like that cool musical content. It's going to serve you up the latest, the greatest stuff, and you're going to always be like, it really is a competition. It's weird to actually talk about it in this capacity and call it that, because that's what it is on paper. It's business at the end of the day. But for us, fortunately, we like to stay much as we can in the creative side of it and just keep doing it for the reasons why we got into it initially, because it's very easy. There's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of slimy activity in this industry, and there's a lot of people who see a quick opportunity. I'll like, getting back to the first year when things blew up, like the amount of every label in the States wanted us. Everybody was taking us out for dinner. The amount of people that had dollar signs in their eyes. And it was clear that they don't really care about the long term. It's like they knew that this one thing was big enough that they could make a significant amount of money off that. And they've been in the biz forever. These big label heads in the States going and playing for Ellie Reed, like in New York City at the Epic Records office in Manhattan, like knowing that this is a guy who's literally known for signing people, telling them they're going to be the next big thing, cashing in on the first couple things, and then shelving them or whatever, right? So like to have a bit of that hindsight going in, is really, really helpful. And I think we've seen so many of our contacts over the years come and go and this sort of stuff, like kind of to your point, but also like be relevant for a while, be there for a while, but then actually just hang it up or go a totally different route, because this industry is tough. It's got to be alongside like a pro sport. It's got to be one of the toughest to get into it all, but then to stick around, right? There's just so many possibilities for things to go south. And you throw in the untimely loss of a bandmate, and you throw in another bandmate having a hard personal crisis coming off of that loss of that bandmate, and things going different ways. And yet here we still are, you know. And I think it's something that we're truly grateful for, to have been through this roller coaster and to know how hard it is to stick around and to still find opportunities. And in many ways, I mean, I haven't even gotten into the fact that we're fully producing a fully budgeted, fully greenlit animated series right now that's going to land on major streaming by the end of this year. Nice. New opportunities that we never would have thought we would have had. Certainly me wanting to be Travis Barker when I was a kid. Here we are working on a bunch of these like opportunities that really aren't even rooted in the main thing we're known for, making music, yet here we are doing it. And it's a neat thing. And honestly, it doesn't upset me in any way when we get it all the time, where it's like, oh, those are those guys. Oh, are you still doing the WOTE thing? Like I remember back in the day, you had the thing. I'm like, actually, we have more stokes in the fire than we've ever had. You know, and it's what a cool moment for people to then be like, oh, and then do the deep dive on the YouTube and wind up in the YouTube rabbit hole of like, you know, there goes 5 hours.
When you're talking about, of course, like doing tours with like Panic at the Disco or for not, I remember scrolling down like the rabbit hole recently of, I was big into Panic at the Disco, All Time Low, all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And this is like the benefit, I think, sometimes of Instagram, where people have the sponsored ads. Some of them you just scroll through, you're like, all right, I get it. Taylor has a new song out. It's like, I love Taylor, but whatever. And then there's UK acts I'm like, never would have heard of you, only for Instagram. Like Macy Peters, Grit, like I think it's a Gritty, but it's like, love them. But there was one that I was like came across, and I think it's like Taylor Acorn, and she does really good covers. And she did, I got it up here on my screen, but it was like Jamie All Over by like Mayday Parade.
Cool, man.
I've never heard of Mayday Parade. And I was not like a scene kid.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right. And then I heard her version. I was like, really love it. She does like a Blink-182 cover. Really love that. But then it made me go back and like, all right, let's hear the original. And then I was like, at first I was like not loving it. But then it grew on me to the point where it's like, I go out on a jog and I'll listen to this. And I'm like, it's 2007. It's not like this is like 2014 or 2018. It's not like, this is 2007. 16-year-old Brian should have known better. But at the same point, if like someone like walks up to me today and is like, what do you listen to? And if I say that, I know if I'm like on one of those TikTok things where someone walks up to you and like, hey, what are you listening to? And I'm like, Jamie All Day. And then they play the song. There's not a fan base or an audience out there like, wow, that's an old song. There's an audience out there like, yeah, he is.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Or if someone's like, yeah, I'm listening to like Sugar We're Going Down, I'd be like, yeah, you are. Yeah. Don't you feel embarrassed about that? Because I'm just like, that song's not old. Then you go back, you're like, oh, it's old, but it's gold. Oh, that's the thing. Yeah.
Modern classics, baby.
Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about, because I know when you were talking about like gaining an audience, gaining a following, but like, I think it's interesting because of course, when you're saying record labels, like you go in, you know, your research here, but I think it's really impressive for you of the band in general, because I was doing a little bit of research, like, you had done a halftime show for, I think it's like the Minnesota New Orleans game, which I believe that was like the Minneapolis Miracle game.
Dude.
Yeah.
I'm about to fly. What's funny, I'm going to, I don't know if you know who Gary V is. I'm flying up to Minneapolis tomorrow for VCon this weekend. And it's at the US Bank Stadium where we did that, which is going to be such a trip to go back there. But yes, we did get to do that. We've done so many wild things.
Yeah, and I just thought that was crazy because I was like, I had to do the bit of research. I'm like, no way that's the game. And I'm like, oh, it's the game. I'm like, even if you're not a fan, I know like sometimes you look on an NFL page and they do the what if this didn't happen. I don't know how they do it, but it's crazy. Yeah. But I'm like, I'm kind of glad that did happen because it's crazy. But you also go ahead.
I just have to tell a story with that. So like I feel like become more and more. I was a bit of a hockey fan for a while. Once the Leafs clearly showed that they weren't going to deliver in our lifetime and continue to not deliver, I pivoted over to like basketball at the perfect time, like 2 years before the Raps did it. But never football. So there I was sitting with our then manager at the time, and he had some money in the game, so he was really invested in everything. And also with Mike Taylor actually, and saying, okay, people were starting to leave. Like I remember that the Saints were up, and there was just like MT was saying, there's absolutely no way these guys are going to bring it back. So we left. They had us pretty good seats. They had our dressing room right across from the Vikings dressing room, and we're walking back, and this just eruption happens. And by the time we made it back, that was when I forget the guy's name, Antoine,
who caught it,
or who threw it or caught it.
Yeah, whoever, I think it's like Diggs who caught it.
Diggs, sorry. So yeah, Diggs. Stephon Diggs, right?
Yeah.
Literally kept running, and like 5 feet. I have a like an Instagram a story of it. 5 feet from me is every reporter in the whole arena freaking out. Like people were going nuts.
Yeah,
man. And obviously they went on, unfortunately, to not win the next game. But that game in isolation was absolutely crazy.
I feel like there are moments, like I feel like, when you go look at like a Stanley Cup final or whatever, like I know I'm a big Detroit Red Wings fan, so it's like, in the 90s where it's like, can they just get over the hump? Can they do this? And then you get that Yzerman goal and like double, and then that like it's sales from here. I feel like if Toronto had to beat Tampa this year, it would have been like, you'd like to think it would be that same trajectory, but like I like to go back and see moments in history where you're kind of like the what ifs, where it's like, hey, if Minnesota did this, and it's like, oh, and like you're always in your history because the way it perceives is like, oh, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl because of that. It's like, totally. But like I'd like to see moments where it's like, this happened, and all the fans like, this is our year, and it didn't end up, but you're like, still a great play.
Yeah.
But it's just like, that's a moment in history that you're like, what if that just had to continue? It's like the Buffalo Kansas City game where it's like people remember that overtime, but it's like if the Bills had to go on to win the Super Bowl, Bills fans would be like, yeah, I know we sucked in the 80s, we kept on going to, but this was was the thing we had to overcome. And it's like, you're right. But
fair. Right. I threw up a tweet recently because I just saw that it was the anniversary of the shot, the Kawhi, the Game 7 Kawhi shot, and I put up a thing saying, basically saying that it was one of the greatest moments in Canadian sports history. And my buddies, like my one buddy who's a diehard Winnipeg Jets fan, actually both of them were just hounding me saying this is not even in the top 10, and they're going after all these isolated moments. And my whole argument was, well, those are great moments, the ones they were mentioning, but they didn't actually contribute to a championship run, right? Like that moment is great because it was the reason that got us to the Eastern Conference and got us to actually go the distance and got Kawhi the FMVP and the whole thing. I mean, obviously it's people can argue about sports all day long. And my two buddies, those two buddies would joke that that's all that Twitter's good for these days is arguing about sports. Yeah. But it's funny what that means to those guys who are a lot more legit as far as lifelong sports fans than me. Just funny that I could ruffle feathers that much by saying like this guy, they were saying, oh, but he's not Canadian and this sort of stuff. And like, they're pulling up examples, like some Rocky Richard stuff and like the USSR goal back in the day and this sort of stuff. And like, yeah, but what about, first of all, in our lifetime, but also like something that actually was part of a much larger thing, that was actually that kind of turning point moment or whatever. I mean, people can go back and forth forever.
Well, it's crazy because when you mentioned that, like I know you also performed at Game 4 of that, like the Golden State but like I went back to that because you don't remember scores and stuff. So obviously someone will correct me after, but it's like I think that game was that one in Toronto?
Or no, that was down in Oakland.
Okay, so you did that in Oakland, but so because Game 5 was back here I was going to say here, I'm in Newfoundland, but like in Toronto, and then like they lose that by 1 point, but then that's the what if factor where you're like, you could have won the championship at home, and that would have been crazy, but then they end up winning it, and it's like the last game I think at Golden State's stadium. Now, I'm a big Steph Curry, I'm a big Steph Curry fan, but I was just like, that's kind of like, it's almost like a bittersweet where you're like, we won a championship and we also won it at your last, so
they didn't. Golden State didn't beat us in their hometown a single time that whole season, which I know probably just still lives rent free in their heads.
I want to ask you, because now you guys were at the Junos this year.
Yeah.
Now you won it in 2016. Yes. But like now for this year, it's interesting because there was I think it's like the children's album. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And like I want to ask you a little bit about that because I'm trying to ruffle feathers here as well, but obviously it's G's kid. And they're doing this album. Like I see sometimes on the page, it's like, all right, I think is it Romeo?
Romeo, yes.
Yeah, so it's like Romeo tries this food or blah, blah, blah. And they do. And I'm like, you know what? That gathers an audience in itself. Maybe not for me, but I will tune into it and be like, all right, how does this kid eat a lemon? It's like, You don't like a lemon? I'm with you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's it. Like, it's like I'm not gonna comment like, "You got it, Romeo," but, like,
yeah,
it's something, but, like, how do you feel about going into, like, a whole different kind of genre or wave there? And I think
yeah.
he was, like, the youngest one to be nominated for a
Youngest
Juno
ever,
Award.
youngest ever. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, I feel like I'm a big S Splash and Boots guy as well,
No
but
way.
I feel like 'cause I have a niece and nephew that got me into
Nice,
Splash and Boots
nice.
and the Wiggles and all this, but,
Oh,
like,
dude.
it's just funny, like, how do you embrace that? Because I mean, there's people out there like, "Listen, we branched out because, hey, a kid came into our life and we liked it," and there's others that's like, "You know what? We've got a lot of kids that like our music, so let's, like, kinda give them their own little thing." Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure if, like, All Time Low was like, "You know what? One of our bandmates had a kid that loved our songs, but we're gonna make it more to their genre, like, to
Right,
their."
right.
So, like, was it kind of that dynamic? And, like, how did you take it? Were you like, "Screw you guys. I'm a drum I don't wanna drum to this."
So, yeah, man, it's interesting. Like, it's definitely not. I mean, like it's we. I feel like we have so synonymized our brand with anything goes to the point where like we have like we've covered Iron Maiden and we've done like we've covered the whole gamut. So when this came up and we saw an opportunity because Romeo, if you're not aware, for anyone listening is unaware, this kid will try like the weirdest foods in the world, and most kids just like they need sugar at all times, right?
Yeah.
This kid will try the weirdest, most bitter, strangest, smelliest stuff, and is like basically a carburetor. He'll take it all. But when it came time to think about the music side of things, we thought, hey, what if, obviously, yes, we do have that younger audience that we can tap into. People all the time tell us, like, you guys are my babysitter. I just put on a YouTube playlist and I just let it go. We said, hey, the actual sort of subject matter or even just like composition and style of the kids music that's out there, we think we can add something different to that. And if you check out, you may not have had a chance to check out the songs we did. Every song, there's a song for every episode for every food that he tries.
Yeah.
We produce them up like we produce WOTE songs. So like a lot of them are these like really dense, like kind of like ballsy productions that just so happen to be the soundtrack for a kids program, right? And some of them have Romeo's vocals and stuff. So I think venturing into that area and seeing what might be possible there, but also making sure that it's still true to our workflow and our process, I think was a cool thing. And I'll never, like, man, we've scratched so many surfaces over the years and we've dipped our beaks in so many ponds that like we're down for everything. And like the vibes are so good these days that anything goes. I should mention as well too that like as the years have gone on and as other opportunities have come along, now the three of us have kind of been able to branch out in other areas, whether a side project, like an electronic project that's very different than WOTE. Most people don't know that I like, that's some of my favorite music is like earthy electronic stuff, and like even just other business ventures and stuff. G operating a label these days called Golden Carrot. Sarah doing like some kind of momfluencer type stuff and having a whole
Yeah.
link with the kids stuff. Me actually most recently getting really deep into Web3 and the more tech side and exploring everything that's going on with non-fungible tokens and metaverse tech and this sort of stuff. It's early days, but it's a very exciting space. Case in point, me going to VCon. Just having a chance to support one another through these different ventures. And of course, for those guys, they've become such a family entity with 3 children now. Absolutely, would I never say, hey guys, this is weird. Let's keep on track here.
Yeah.
Embracing those creative differences or stylistic differences or anyone wanting to kind of try out a different lane, I think is part of the reason why 10 years on, we're having more fun than we've ever had, right? I think that's those sort of things where other bandmates get caught up. Man, I will never forget when we had first signed our big Columbia deal and we went down to Los Angeles and we were shooting like the video for Red Hands.
Okay.
And like it was this whole big budget experience, and our video guy who was there on behalf of the label, he was on his phone the whole day and he kept apologizing. And I finally, like in between takes, I asked him, Brian, like, what's stressing you out? Why are you so glued to your phone? He said, I'm currently on email threads with the 5 separate members of Aerosmith and their 5 separate managers because they hate each other so much they never speak, and they only speak to each other through their managers. And when they go on the road, they're in 5 separate tour buses, and
Wow.
even the banter they have on stage is pre-rehearsed and pre-written because that's how much they don't even want to associate with each other anymore. And to think about like a group like that has changed the face of music and has
Yeah.
inspired millions and sold millions and millions and millions of records to get to a point where they can't even speak to each other anymore. I knew from that moment that I was like, whatever we got to do to keep the vibes high at all times, that's the most important thing. And it's a shame to hear about
Yeah.
obviously more often than not, some variation of that happens that gets a wrench gets thrown in the gears, and that's the situation. So to always be prioritizing that, and certainly, of course, getting into things like the loss of Mike, and I actually lost my mom to brain cancer a week after we lost Mike. So like to start going through that stuff, man, the heavy life stuff, and realize, wait a minute, here we are a decade in, still getting a chance to make a living off of music when we know so many people that are more talented than us, that are more deserving than us, but for some number of reasons they didn't get that chance.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to do whatever. We'll fight to the death to make sure we can keep this up, because not everybody gets this chance, and we were one of the lucky few that got that chance. And if I could commend us in any way, I would say that our work ethic in that sense, where I remember there was a viral video at the same time that our video took off, of a girl on the toilet crying about her cat.
Yeah.
And she was like singing some song or whatever. And she did like a merch drop, and she tried to ride that wave a little bit, but
Yeah.
I compare that to like us, where it was like, oh, this is the moment that we all wanted, that no one thought would ever happen. Let's go crazy. And we really haven't stopped. And that was a decade ago, man. So that's something that I think, and sincerely hope we will continue to do, even with people going in slightly different ways and trying certain things out, and life doing its thing. I think always coming back to this beautiful thing that has given us so much opportunity, that has changed our lives forever in a crazy amount of ways, that's allowed us to change other people's lives. Nothing's more rewarding than hearing from people that our music inspired them in the way that my favorite artists have inspired me. That sort of
Yeah.
full circle stuff, nothing will ever top that, man. So like, to do whatever it takes to keep ourselves in this position. The way we say it, we've kind of fought and earned this ability to be here, but we need to, like I was saying earlier, we need to fight to stay there, because there's a lot of people champing at the bit to try and get there as well. And it's nothing keeps a fire lit under your ass than just doing then finishing our work day and opening up YouTube and seeing or TikTok and seeing some incredible acoustic guitar thing, and right away sending it to G and being like, we gotta beat this, we gotta
Yeah.
one up this.
Yep. I want to ask you, because again, to kind of close it out, like maybe two more topics here,
Yeah,
but
man.
like Mike, or like I feel like it would be kind of very passive of me to not mention him at
Mhm.
all. But I want to ask you, because you did mention, of course, about losing your mom as well. Like,
Yeah.
take me through that.
What a time. And the two polar opposite scenarios. My mom diagnosed with brain cancer and had actually a year to the day of time left, which, as much as that initial hit of the news is so tough, man, it's I feel like everybody knows someone who had a situation where they didn't have a year of lead time. For
Yeah.
us to know, obviously it's a horrible thing, and it's the amount that I've changed and the amount that we went through as a family, and the whole thing is awful. But to at least, I mean, kind of brings back this whole thing that people talk about sometimes, where it's like, if you could find out your moment, your time,
Yeah.
would you want to know? And just to know that what the prognosis was, and sorry, it was 14 months rather was the prognosis, and 14 months to the day she went. So to know there was a situation where we had lead time, and I was able to kind of restructure my life around making sure that time could be there, versus a Mike where, so man, it was the 30th, was it the 30th of December? We were, and he had passed the night before. We didn't know this yet. I wake up the morning of 30th December. We're heading up to Niagara Falls to do the New Year's broadcast.
Yes. There you go. Yeah.
And I'm about to leave. And for some reason, I woke up that morning, and my mom was getting bad. We knew she was getting close to the end. She was starting to ask, like, when are we going to the hospice and stuff? Like, much as the cancer had kind of really sort of decoupled her from reality. So she had moments where she was like basically asking us, like, when is it going to be time? Because I feel like
Yeah.
it's soon. So I just woke up with this weird feeling, and I was like, I'm going to check my dad's location. And I checked my dad's location. I'm actually from Paris, Ontario. I checked it, and he was at the Brantford General Hospital. And I was like, okay, something obviously happened there. And right as I was about to call him and see what was going on, Johnny called me and said, hey, have you left to head up for sound check yet? And I said, no. He said, well, don't. And here's why. And then he dropped the news on me. And that's where everything happened. And then so I called my dad, and he said, actually, your mom last night had finally kind of had enough. And she basically, it's an interesting thing. When she reached her point of like, I can't take this anymore, my dad loved her to the point where he didn't want her to leave that home. So her
Yeah.
way of, she knew that my dad would have had to been dragged out of there kicking and screaming, and as would she have. And that's actually what she never really actually mentioned this publicly, but she actually kicked up a big stink to the point where she had to be removed from the home, actually fastened to a stretcher and removed, because she knew that's what it was going to take, because this fucking guy loved her that much that he was just like, I'm going to keep you here, until the end. He wanted her to be there right to the end. So that was her putting up her hand and saying, I've had enough. So the same day that I got the news that my bandmate passed suddenly out of nowhere the night before was the same day that was the beginning of the final stretch of my mom's life, where she freaked out. They took her to the emerge. They dosed her huge with Ativan, and she was out. Essentially, she was in a coma there through the next 9 or so days until she finally passed. And right around that time was when we had the tribute concert for Mike in Burlington, which the Bare Naked Ladies came out, the Arkells guys came out, the BNL guys coming was an incredible moment. And just like, it's but just the obviously that being me being like, okay, this is clearly the bottom. Like it's I just lost my bandmate suddenly, and my mom finally, after a year of the biggest ups and downs I'll hopefully will ever encounter. I just lost these two things. This is what the bottom feels like, right? And then just that rebuild, man. And like I was saying, like I've been kind of saying throughout this whole chat, like those moments that really just stop you and say, hey, this could happen. Doesn't matter if you're busy and you're planning the next months ahead and all this sort of stuff. Life, whatever you believe in, whatever you believe dictates all this stuff, can just out of nowhere say, hey, by the way, none of this is promised. None of this is guaranteed. And that has fortunately really stuck with me to the point where, like, my partner Carly and I will regularly just tell her, I'm just grateful for today, because everyone's happy. No one's, you know what I mean? Everyone's happy and healthy. That's something to celebrate, which I think, of course, people take for granted until they start to have those moments where it's like, oh, I'm not invincible, and these people around me, you always hear about it happening to someone else, but it can happen to me too. What a moment to realize, like, the impermanence of it all, and to really just I think I certainly, speaking for myself, was guilty of getting swept up in it all prior to, and if there was to be a silver lining of going through great loss like that, whether sudden and unexpected, or whether not sudden and very much expected, that silver lining is, I'm forever changed by that, and will forever be grateful for the small, simple things that I feel like prior to, most people take for granted, who are in a position that's, you're fortunate to have a roof over your head, and the sorts of things that we're able to be fortunate for. It's easy to take that for granted. And so you have one of those moments where it's like, actually, you've been lucky until now, or you know what I mean? Or you're still going to be lucky and fortunate in lots of ways. But by the way, anything can change in an instant. So just make sure, I try to relay that to people, but you see it in people's face when you tell them that like, I can be that. I can go on this emotional thing and tell them that and say, oh, you're not close with your mom. Call your mom. You need to, you don't understand. You have to value the time. You can see it in people's face where it's like, okay, like realistically, they need to experience that themselves for them to really get that feel for it. But I feel like even just putting it on people's radar to say, like, it's, hopefully you don't want, it's a bittersweet thing. You don't want the person to have that moment, but that if they're going to have that moment, there's going to be quite a few life lessons in there that hopefully will allow them to, in the midst, come out of a negative situation with kind of a new light, or a new set of positive outlooks on the world, this sort of stuff, right?
Now, I want to ask you to kind of close the whole conversation out here. Is, you guys are getting ready to go on tour.
Yes.
I want to ask you, like, how, because I know we kind of expanded on it throughout the whole conversation here of, like, the pandemic, meaning relative to the pandemic. I'm like doing like a synopsis here, like, so like, but it's, you get to go back on tour. You get to go now see live crowds again. Like, how exciting is that for you? And like, I guess a little bit of an interesting kind of aspect of, when did you decide this? Because right after Junos sounds like a great time to do it, where it's like, we did the Junos, people see us at the Junos, or they know we were there. And then it's like, now, all right, let's go back out into the world again. Let's do touring. But like, how excited are you for that? And how did this all kind of come to be in terms of choosing like the places and the dates?
Right. Yeah. So in terms of routing, like there's people like, this first stretch of dates is going to be stateside. So there's people, we have a different US agent than our guy, Ralph in Canada, Ralph James, who's kind of like the guy. But yeah, like it's that stuff gets pitched to us, right? So we really can only say we're into it or we're not into it, right? So we're about to play Bud Stage next month, right? And it'll be our third time postponing that show because of COVID. So it's almost like, is it really going to happen? Like, you know what I mean? You start to see headlines of COVID popping back up.
You were like, you were the Leafs of round one when it comes to the Bud stage.
Yeah. So hopefully third time's a charm there. But yeah, I mean, I'm just stoked to actually get to it because there's been so much of that. There's been so much postponing and rescheduling to the point where just getting back on a tour bus again, it's going to be like, oh wow, we're really doing this now. And you know, our first show's in Cleveland, and then a few more in Ohio, and then we go to New York to do Carnegie Hall, which is going to be amazing. And just we're thrilled. Like there's nothing. I think every music lover in the pandemic realized, whether on stage or in the audience, there's nothing that replaces that live show energy. And we've had small little teases. Like back in September, we did a California run. We went down and did an awesome festival called Bottle Rock, which was very much our first time back doing that. California had kind of like done away with the mask mandates and stuff, and we got like an early preview of that. We did a Napa show, we did a San Francisco show. That was a little tease, but this is going to be really the first time we're actually like traveling together on the bus and like really doing it. So it's going to be awesome, and it's a relatively short run for that very same reason, because as soon as you rent buses, as soon as you say, "Hey crew, we're gonna pay your daily wages," you're on the hook for that, right? So we to start small, because we have everybody we know that tours a lot more than us has been burned by this, right? So to start small, do a few things, a few kind of more statement plays with the Bud Stage and with the Carnegie Hall. Hopefully they all go well. Then we can maybe we can look to Europe and this sort of stuff. We're just really stoked to do it. And we're putting together the new live show where you mentioned Sunroof. We're actually putting together, and all this TikTok talk. We're putting together, because we've had some success with some of these ones. We're putting together. People have always enjoyed these mashups that we've done, whether a mix of our own tunes or the covers that we've done that people really enjoy. We're putting together a TikTok mashup right now that's actually all on we have this crazy thing called the Guy Harpalele that these people made us. It's literally a 3-headed monster that's part bass. It's a harp bass, it's a ukulele, and it's a 6-string guitar, and it's got a bunch of percussion and cool engravings on it. So the whole thing is going to be centered around our Guy Harpalele, which we've done a few videos with and songs on as well. But this is going to be this brand new moment in the show, and just putting together a new live show. I do a lot of the kind of arranging and just basically logistics of how our shows run and this sort of stuff. And just getting back in that has been exciting enough on its own to actually take that and to craft this show of ours and actually take it out and to see people's faces and just that enjoyment and that shared energy experience that is live performance and nothing else is something that I can't wait for. That being said, we got this amazing dog now, and I love my girl and stuff. So coming home is always a great feeling. I got to be honest and say that I'm glad that we're in a position where, especially with G and Sarah and the kids and stuff, we can't really road dog it anymore. Like there was a time where we would go out for a couple months at a time, and we would love it. These days, both because of what I was mentioning about the amount of opportunities when we stay at home, but also the family stuff and all that, we aren't really able to go out and do these longer runs. But to that point, we can make the absolute most of these shorter runs and have a blast while we're doing it, and not know that we're not going to be out there long enough to the point where we're going to start nitpicking each other for leaving socks out in bunk alley or this sort of stuff, you know?
Yeah, that's what you want, like the headline to read, like, you know, like, oh yeah, walk off the earth breaks up because so and so didn't put away their socks. I'd be like, that's such a Canadian story, because
they made it through all this actual insanity, and then that's what did it. The sock that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, it's like Oasis breaks up because of song differences. Blink-182 breaks up because of like Mark and Tom just have, and it's like Walk Off the Earth breaks off because someone forgot to put their socks away. But like, why do Canadians are so like? Why are we so cool yet so dorky?
Yeah.
And then
I could see that being a real thing for some band.
Toronto Star posted, it's like, we sat down with JC and JC said, and it's just like, I sat down with JC and JC said, and they'd be like, yeah, but you're a Toronto Star. I'd be like, what do I gotta do to get attention around here?
That's gonna do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Joel Cassady for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening, and good night.